who also has a beautiful face. Um, so I'm kind of talking to you, Cynthia, and if people are throwing tomatoes out there, you just let me know. Like Cynthia said, I am passionate about arts education and making the arts more accessible for everyone. And that's one of the lenses that I'm going to be presenting this information. Cynthia also let me know we got a lot of artists and educators in the audience today. So my original idea was a little bit more focused on arts administration, but knowing that we've got educators and artists in the audience, I broadened the scope to include some of those concerns that we might have as artists and educators, and some of the benefits that we can hope to achieve through all of this. So thank you for coming today. Um, if you can see my slides, and I think you all can, you can see a still from the movie Doctor Strangelove. If you haven't seen that movie, I think it's a good time to watch it because I think there are some metaphors in there that kind of resonate a little bit with what's going on today in technology. This particular image is Major Kong, who is a rogue uh, agent who is leading a group of Air Forcemen to bomb Siberia, and they weren't supposed to do that. But the idea was getting at with this is that we've got a small group of people right now controlling something really powerful, and we don't all get to say what happens with it. So despite that, we all have to live with the repercussions of the bot, like it says in the title. So let's talk about some of the dangers first. I'm going to talk to you about some of those opportunities too. Danger. AI may cause intellectual property theft, destabilizing, dishonest information and images, relationship replacements, devaluing of the workforce, and massive energy consumption and carbon emissions. That last one, energy consumption, is not something I really address in this talk, but it's something to consider. Anytime there's new technology, especially before it becomes more efficient, it's very resource intensive, and that's a giant concern. Not super germane to what we're talking about here, but I want you to be thinking about that. And opportunities are available. Creativity for all through improved access is possible with these tools. A brainstorming partner at any hour of the day, that's here now. A reference fetcher for academic work. That's one of my great one of the things I really appreciate about these tools is that they can take what you're doing in academia and make it a little bit faster if you're looking online. Automation with a language-based interface. It's a very human way of interacting with machines to talk and to write. Um, and networks of agents to help you realize your organizational goals. That's kind of far off, but it's something that people are working on and talking about today. So let's get into it. I want to open this up with a little bit of discussion, and I think Cynthia is going to help me out with the chat here. Have you played with these tools? Are you familiar with them? It could be an LLM like ChatGPT, or a video game where some of the characters are controlled by the computer, or spell check. Spell check is kind of where a lot of this stuff kind of sort of emerged from. So I want to hear from the audience a little bit. So Cynthia, would you share some comments as
Yes,
they
we've got
percolate?
someone mentioned spell check. I was typing up mine. I have used ChatGPT. So Cynthia said yes, writing pro aid. Um, Anybody else want to share? I know I have some friends who do a lot of images. ChatGPT and other folk doing that
Sure.
one. Asking AI to help summarize content has been very useful. That Jared said he's using it frequently. Megan is ChatGPT working on MBA, and professors have us use it for some questions and feedback.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. I see a lot of hazards in terms of education, but gosh, I sure utilize the research assistance um, for many things. Is there any follow up on that one, Cynthia? A little bit more
Uh,
about how they're using it?
No, not yet. She might be.
Um, that's me. I'm
Okay.
here. I'm at home. But yeah, so for some of our questions, it'll say like you can use ChatGPT for one and two, but not for three and four. Or they'll say upload your question, your answer to ChatGPT and ask it for feedback.
Wow. So that's a really, I haven't heard of that kind of use case. See, this is why I was excited to get out here today and talk to you all because it's so new. Everybody's doing different stuff with it. We all have different things we can get out of it and different things we're worried about. Thank you, Megan. Is there anyone else who wanted to chime in before we keep moving today? All right, let's get into it. So, very high level, um, quick overview of some of the things that are out there, and we're going to talk about a couple of terms too. Open AI is a big company that's the company that makes ChatGPT. That's a machine you can talk to and it talks back to you and you can ask it all kinds of questions and it'll give you all kinds of answers. Some of them are good and some of them are not so good. So always check your work with ChatGPT. Google Gemini is a very similar platform. I would say it's a little bit better. It's probably the state of the art right now. They have something that I use a lot called deep research that's extremely helpful for finding references. If you are working on a project and you've got a large scope, it's a wonderful way to find resources you wouldn't have found otherwise. DeepSeek is a Chinese company's product that is an answer to Gemini and ChatGPT. They've really focused on making it more efficient and therefore a little bit more environmentally friendly. Character AI is a platform that allows people to create and share personalities that are computer generated and tell stories with them. And some people even have friendships and other kinds of relationships with them. We'll get to a slide on character AI later. Grok is by XAI. It's another platform kind of like this. There's been a lot of news stories about the XAI inserting some of their opinions about the world into Grok. And so that's an interesting thing to think about too, is the people that are creating these things have something to do with the opinions that come out of it. So keep it in mind when you're using these platforms that even though it's a machine you're talking to, a person made it and their biases, they come through. So 11 Labs and Sesame are a couple of companies that are on the cutting edge of voice synthesis. What they're doing is unbelievable. If you haven't experienced talking to one of those platforms, it really is a shock. They're very, very natural for what they are. Sometimes things go wrong and it ends up making horrible sounds and it doesn't sound like a person at all, but in general, stunning. Stable Diffusion, Sora, Dolly, VO2. These platforms are all for image and video generation. The image generation's gotten quite good lately, and I'm sure that that'll come up a little bit later in some of our discussions. Video is improving. It's not there yet, but I have seen some people make some interesting things. Suno is something that I haven't had a chance to experiment with much myself. I'm a musician, so I just want to go to the basement and play with my synthesizer and my guitar and things. So it's not something that's really piqued my attention or my interest that much, but I have also seen some pretty amazing things on YouTube that people do with the Suno platform. And there are other ones of all of these kinds of platform. There are lots of companies out there trying to be the best. So let's talk about some terms. An LLM, that's a term you might hear a lot in the news. It's a large language model. ChatGPT is a large language model. They work by using statistics to associate concepts with other concepts. So they train on these large bodies of information, and once a model is trained, it's kind of hard to get into what it all means because it encodes it in its own way. So it's very hard to tease these things apart once they're trained. That's referred to as the black box problem. It's interesting. It's a little spooky when you let those things make up their own language that we can't understand. Image generation models or diffusion models are the models that make pictures, and I'm sure we've all seen some examples. A president as a pope, perhaps. Uh, the model they're trained on a lot of images that are then filled with noise, just like TV static. And then the models to make new images go backwards with that process of taking a noisy image and saying, does this look like a cat? No. Does that look like a cat? No. And so on and so forth until it finds something that is more essentially cat-like. And that's done with tagged images, so they have those human words to associate images with them. So there's a whole lot of computer science behind all of that, and we're not getting into it today because that's not what we're talking about. Um, if you're interested in the science behind this, it's dense, but there's a lot of great materials out there to help you understand exactly what's going on inside of these things. But I'm more interested in talking about how it's going to impact our society, especially in the arts and for artists, for arts administrators, arts educators. So is AI stealing? Well, yeah, kind of. Uh-huh. Here's a metaphor. Imagine a college student that has infinite time. Wouldn't that be awesome, right, Megan? I would love that. They spend their hours reading in the library, and while they read, they say, "This is like that. That's like this." One day, they finish reading every book on the shelf. They don't remember everything they read, but they learned a lot. The trouble is they charge other students $20 to write their papers and they never pay tuitions or buy any books at the bookstore. And sometimes they accidentally plagiarize. So that's a really kind of broad metaphor for some of those issues around int, intellectual property theft. Each company kind of takes its own approach to licensing this information, but I think every company has also bent those rules. Um, if you have anything out there on the internet, your artwork, your images, your posts, they're already in the training data. So that's something to consider before you upload things these days, especially on platforms like Google, Meta, XAI. They all use this information to train their models. So if you don't want your information trained, I would make sure and keep them off those platforms. So here is something that my friend and colleague Jennifer Dryabelbis, the grant database administrator at Nebraska Arts Council, emailed me the other day. We have a lot of conversations about this kind of technology and what its impact might look like. I'm going to just read the first couple of paragraphs of this to you because there's some exciting stuff here. Um, the U.S. Copyright Office sides with content creators. That's us. Concluding in its latest report that the fair use exemption likely does not apply to commercial AI testing. That would be Google and OpenAI and X. From the report, various uses of copyrighted works in AI training are likely to be transformative. The extent to which they are fair, however, will depend on what works were used, from what source, for what purpose, and with what controls on the outputs, all of which affect the market. When a model is deployed for purposes such as analysis or research, the types of uses that are crucial to international competitiveness, the outputs are unlikely to substitute for expressive works used in training. But making commercial use of vast troves of copyrighted works to produce expressive content that competes with them in existing markets, especially where this is accomplished through illegal access, goes beyond established fair use boundaries. So this is breaking information. This is, I think, 4 days old, this email. And that's from the AI Tech and Privacy Academy. So they have their bias here. They're very pro privacy, but it's the U.S. Copyright Office who is making decisions about this. And this is a huge, huge thing. The way that these companies have been training their models on our content, our artwork, it's one of the biggest boils. And on the whole AI thing. I think it's something that needs to be addressed by governments, and I'm glad to see that the U.S. government's taking a look at it. However, not everyone agrees with the ruling. You can see from that little image in the corner that changes have been happening at the Copyright Office since they published this. So, uh, yeah, we know who butters their bread in which ways. Of course, I jumped forward. This is the first AI image that you're going to see in this slideshow. This little robot fellow. I created it with Gemini and used Canva to remove the background and used PowerPoint to put a little shadow on it. So very often, anytime you're making an image with AI, that's the starting point, and then you might filter it through a few other platforms depending on your workflow. Um, but I'm curious, what are your concerns? You guys have skin in the game and have been thinking about this, or you wouldn't be here. So let's hear from the audience about what you are concerned about.
I also wanted to add that Cynthia was saying earlier that she uses this in her classes to remove parts of the image. So that goes along with what you were just talking about.
I had a question. So are you saying AI pulls images just from like when you Google on Google Images, it's just pulling any of those images?
Anything that Google has a license for, which is
A
everything,
license for. Okay.
yeah, uh, everything that they can access. So Google has kind of been way out in front on this stuff compared to some of these other companies. They um, my my phone just started recording what I said because I said the word Google. Isn't that funny? Um, yeah, so different companies have taken different approaches to this based on the information they have access to. For instance, Meta is not going to like it if Google is training on their data. So it's a lot about companies competing with each other right now. Consumer protections are coming in from the Copyright Office, but it's yet to be established. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yes. So then Google's license is like their royalty-free images, so people could use whatever AI creates.
They train their stuff on anything you can find on a Google search.
Okay, so then they could be copyrighted images that they're giving you and then you're using. Okay.
Yeah, there's not a lot of discrimination at this point. Other thoughts, other concerns that people have? Guy, hello.
I think you're muted.
No, I don't see it's muted. I see you're a plant guy though. I'm surrounded by my plants today.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. Um, so anything that you put on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, that's all fair game
Oh
because you
yeah.
give up on copyright when you do that, correct?
Yeah, or they share the license. So,
Right.
and or that version of that image is yeah, theirs to use.
So people can use that and uh, not owe you anything.
No. No, no one's getting paid for this stuff.
So like what I do is I never put anything on that's more than 200 kilobytes. Is that a good idea? Because then you can't blow it up. You can't really.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It definitely makes sense for people who want to take your images and use them on their own, but a LLM or image generation model can train on any size of data.
It could
Uh,
take it and make it big, make the file big.
or just take from what it can. It's pretty rare to see a one-to-one kind of like there's my picture show up in a generation, but it might take the cat likeness of a cat that you drew away from your image. And if you're established enough online, you might be able to write, make me an image in the style of Guy Kemper, and it might do that. There's a lot. That's the biggest issue around content uh, protection at the moment is if you even somebody with an Etsy shop, something like that. If it's big enough for the LLM to have noticed, and it doesn't take much, it doesn't see my work when I asked it to make a Joshua Brown painting, but somebody who's represented at a commercial gallery and has a lot of images online that they're tagged with their name, you might be able to do that. Now, it's not going to be just like what you do, but it might be a lot like what you do. And you can see the artist's hand in there. And I think that's a lot about what we're trying to quantify right now in the legal sphere is like, what is that artist's hand? Is that quantifiable? Well, it must be somewhat because these machines are picking up on it and noticing it and understanding stylistic things. If you type, I want a picture of a beautiful hippopotamus balancing on a beach ball in an impressionist style, you certainly can, but you can dive in further and say, I want to paint it like Boudin or Matisse or whoever. That works really well.
Okay.
We have a couple of comments. Colleen said, "Thank you for sharing that letter and site. That's very helpful." Jared says, "I'm concerned about the speed at which this technology is evolving. We're in a research testing phase to determine what products might suit our needs. And it seems there's new versions of these LLMs coming out regularly. I admit I don't exactly understand the ins and outs of how these tools are progressing." And then Colleen said, "So when you share on social media, would you recommend watermarks or placing your website or link within the image? I've seen this and heavily practiced this. Would that help protect or deter AI using elements of your work?"
No. It's more effective against people who want to take your images and repurpose them online, but that's not exactly how the diffusion models work. They kind of melt down your image and take ideas from it and then reapply them. So you might see it's rare. I've seen a couple of examples on like Reddit of people who say this is my signature on this picture. I've seen that before. Um, so it's rare. It's not impossible for that to happen. It's not what I'm most concerned about with my images online. I'm still more concerned about somebody else trying to use them. Um, just the way those diffusion models work, it's hard for it to take something concrete, but it'll take concepts from your work about line, about movement, about the really kind of core uh, properties of art. Those are the kind of things that I can pull out rather than, oh, that hand is the one I drew. That's a lot more rare. Like I said, I've seen people's signatures come up that looks like that guy's signature. Or if you say, I want this in the style of Picasso, you might see a Picasso signature show up in the corner. But that's because it's been trained on your signature. It's not actually the picture of your signature. Um, so maybe that's clear, but maybe it's not. If you're really concerned about how this works, I would take a look at diffusion models and how they boil things down to a conceptual level. Um, Not a very satisfying answer, perhaps, but it is not a one-for-one image copy and paste. It is more like taking the idea of something.
Um, and we have another comment, Cynthia, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But she agrees with Jared. How do we train the next generation of art makers to use AI responsibly? I'm not opposed if students use it, but I wonder if there are ethics guidelines.
I think that students should be working on their own work. I suppose if you've got like a graphic design student or something that wants to make images that way, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's important to learn the basics of using like Adobe Illustrator to create your own imagery. Personally, I don't know if there's a clear ethical dossier or group of rules for them. I think it's something that we should address with students and maybe not discourage them from playing with it, but at that student level, I would love to see them making their own work and learning how to use more traditional digital tools to produce imagery. Whether, I mean, if you permit it and they admit it, that they're using AI and that's what you're talking about and that's what you're doing, I don't see that there's an ethical problem with it. One thing I do think is an important guideline when it comes to ethics is you can't really say that, in my opinion, and this is an opinion, you can't really say that that's your artwork. You can say, I generated this. I use this for my project. But I think it's important that we still say I used an AI tool to make something when we are doing that. That's my personal opinion. But I think it makes sense, especially when you're in that academic environment where plagiarism is a concern. I think saying an AI image and saying that it's yours is a little bit of plagiarism. My little robot character here is totally generated by AI, and you can see one of his antennas isn't quite right. And that's probably more Canva than the image generator. But this is something that you might have used, that you could have made in Photoshop, or you still can make in Photoshop. Just takes a long time. This took me 15 seconds to crank out, more or less. Um, so I emphasize traditional methods. Be honest about what you're doing, and don't call it your artwork. I suppose you could, but that's not how I feel about it. It's something you generated, though. Any other concerns that people? Oh, we talked. Jared had a question about just the pace of this and how we can stay on top of things. Like you said, Jared, it's in the research phase right now, and things are moving fast. Big companies are spending a ton of money on this. Universities all over the world, computer science programs are looking at how to utilize these things, and we're really just in the first 5 years of these LLMs being really effective and real. AI goes back to the beginning of computers and punch cards and all of that. But this specific style of generating responses is new. And I think if you really want to stay on top of it, I think you got to be on top of it to a certain extent. Now, whether your agency or organization should implement these tools right now, I would say just wait. They're going to get better. They're going to make fewer mistakes in the future. There's still a lot of concern about hallucination, which is not a topic we're covering today, but it's very pertinent to the discussion. These models are not always accurate, and especially when you're coding, if you're not a good coder already, you might end up taking a lot more time because there might be a mistake somewhere, and then you have to debug. And that takes a lot longer than just writing the code right the first time. I would say that goes the same thing for grants, writing grants. Anything you write, you have to with an AI tool, you've got to really pull your magnifying glass out after it's done. Make sure it's specific. Make sure it's true. I have the privilege of reviewing a lot of applications in my work of amazing art programs all over the place, and people use AI. They do it, and then sometimes it's really good and very specific, and that's because the person who used that tool put all of that specific information in. Um, that's kind of how you get high quality out of these machines. If you give it very general prompts, it'll generate AI slop, and that might be a term you've heard before, or maybe not, but it's kind of a just a term for things that are overbroad and poorly done by AI because the prompting is not so good. But in terms of what platform your organization should be using right now, if you want to open up Gemini and use that to help you with your work, I think that's great. If your organization is looking at spending hundreds of dollars a month on a dedicated platform, I would recommend that you wait. I think about 2 years. I don't know. Like you said, Jared, it's happening really fast. They're announcing new models every month or so. It seems like there's a big change. We're going to talk about some of the frontier stuff at the end of this talk if we have time. And in fact, I think we got to keep moving off of this, but there's a lot to talk about in terms of concerns. They're valid. Something that I'm excited for is the improvement to access to the arts and creativity that these tools can promote. Now, this is outside of the professional sphere, in my opinion. This is something that you might create a storybook class for older adults who want to make a book for their grandkids, something custom that includes things from their lives and their experience. I think that's wonderful. Turning around and selling it on Amazon is a little less wonderful and couldn't be copyrighted. So that's something to consider. I think for commercial applications, it's less good, but these kind of social, cultural building possibilities, terrific. A storytelling aid for people with disabilities. This is great for people with attention disabilities or motor disabilities. You can generate so much without having a steady hand or a lot of experience. You can have a cool idea and see it realized and enjoy and be satisfied by it. I think so much of the joy of creating is not getting paid for it. It's just doing it. And these can be tremendous aids for people who just want to create. Custom lesson plans for students who need special attention. I think there's a really big opportunity there. It takes a long time to write lesson plans, and a good lesson plan is hard to write. This isn't going to give you the best thing ever, but it's a starting point. And especially if you've got students with diverse needs, this could be really helpful. If you need to adapt a script for a cast with diverse abilities and you're not sure exactly what you need to do, this can be a really great tool for helping you think through other people's needs. Saying, well, what are the things we should be considering if we want to put this play on and have actors that have mobility disabilities or mental disabilities? You can bounce that kind of thing off, and it'll give you good recommendations and connect you to resources that can help you do that accessible work better. Another nice thing that you can just to go back to that last slide, the little picture of the older adult here with the robot was generated by OpenAI's most recent model. An aid for your creative projects. This is also kind of getting at some of the same things. It's accessibility, but for professionals, this is not something that generates a final product for you. But if you want to storyboard a script, it's very handy. You can do that yourself and not spend a lot of time sketching it out or hiring somebody. So that is a concern in terms of industry. If you're not hiring somebody to do this, that's a concern. However, it is a enabling tool for you. Workshopping ideas before you bring it to a group. Megan was getting at that a little bit with their teacher who was encouraging to bounce ideas off of the LLM. Copyright-free images for your presentations. Very handy for that. You can see this image here has got the little AI watermark in the bottom corner. It's I just said, make a cute robot helping somebody write a script. And it gave me this kind of Pixar-oriented image of a woman with brown hair working on a script, I guess, and then a little robot helping out with a big smile. One thing that people have been using these for, and I talked about this earlier, is for their grant applications. It makes me so sad when somebody just dumps AI generated content into a application and sends it to us. And they almost always get scored horribly because it's just overgeneral. It's not because it's bad writing. It just doesn't talk about what you're actually doing because it doesn't know. It only knows what you tell it. So if you are going to use a LLM to improve your grant writing, I recommend writing it out the way you would and then running it through an LLM to see what improvements that it might suggest or what kind of polishes to the language that are possible. There are some big tells that come out when you see a grant application that has been AI generated. One is kind of like bolded headlines. Sometimes it has a hard time with outline formats, lots of M dashes and more masculine verbiage. These things tend to churn out more masculine verbiage. And so those are things to watch out for. If you don't want it to look like you used an LLM, take a look at your headings, take a look at the words that you're using, and just make sure that you're putting all the real information in there first. I mean, for my money, it's still better. I would rather get an application that has some mistakes in it, in maybe the structure or the language, but it gives me a clear picture of what you're doing. That's the most important thing. What's actually happening. Yes, and then we talked about outlining plans for classes. This, when I wrote that, I was mostly kind of thinking about teaching artists that I work with. I have a couple of teaching artists who use LLMs to help them create lesson plans and create programs of all sorts of uh, wonderful arts workshops. And I think that's great as long as, again, it's specific and true to you and based on your real ideas. I think that's good. You can also use it to help generate ideas, and they can make good ones. Um, but it's all about doing that second check, putting your real ideas into it. So is there anything that you can imagine using these for um, to improve your practice or workflow? And we'll just take one or two comments here so we can keep on time. Nothing, Cynthia?
No, but I
Oh,
will add that when I'm working on guidelines, maybe I should throw them in there and see if that's got any areas of improvement. Not that I would take it every time, but it
right.
wouldn't hurt. I think Guy is back with us.
Yes.
Yeah. So what if can you, like I do large scale architectural work.
Mhm.
Sometimes in a photograph, I have a car drives by in the background or something. I could say, remove this car, right?
Oh, yes. Oh,
And
yes.
would that
Mhm.
be, what program would do that in like Photoshop?
Oh, sure. Photoshop. They've got I think I don't remember the name of the app within Photoshop that does what you're asking for. But I use Canva a lot because it's cheap and free if if you're associated with a nonprofit. And that's such an easy platform for doing image removal and background removal. They make it really simple.
Okay.
It doesn't take a deep knowledge of image software to make it happen for you. There's even websites online that you can just upload a photo to and download it with an image removed. Those tend to be less good than Canva and Photoshop. But yeah, it's pretty hard to mess up with Photoshop or Canva.
Okay. Thanks.
It works really well. It works very, very well. Um,
I love
Cynthia,
Canva too.
it's pretty nice.
No, haven't heard
Great.
from anyone
That's
else.
good. Because we got a lot more stuff to talk about and not a lot of time to do it. Misinformation is an issue that is going to only be more and more prevalent here. I'm going to just briefly touch on this study. We talked about how to spot AI applications, so I'm not going to talk about that now. 32 participants completed a letter review. This is for letters of recommendation, but you can also think about LOIs and all sorts of letters of this nature. The mean accuracy of distinguishing between human and AI authored LORs was 59%. That means on average, people about got it half the time to notice whether or not it was created by an AI. So I mean, this is a specific case, but you can also extrapolate, like if somebody has a nefarious cause and they want to hurt me or take my things, and they want to use an LLM to generate text in a language they're not familiar with, or in an industry they're not familiar with, it tricks a lot of people. Um, so unfortunately, there's not a great answer to that. The AI detection tools that are out there are not terribly effective at this point. I think they'll probably get better, but there are a lot of false positives that it spits out, which kind of makes you just doubt the whole platform. If you can't give a reliable, yes, this is AI, that's not AI answer, then I think you're just muddying the waters. I know teachers are in a tough spot right now with that and deciding whether or not to use those. I guess use them with discretion. And please realize that those things do kick out false positives. If the language is crisp and clean already, and maybe uses some of those tells, that AI checking software is going to pick up on those things and might give you incorrect information. So that misinformation runs a couple different ways. I've been hearing a lot of stories about little kids just using ChatGPT to get their homework done. You can pretty much take a picture of a page, feed it in there, and say, what's the answer? And kids have done that and are doing that. I think now is the time to talk to your kids about when to use these tools, if to use these tools. I would probably say don't let your kids use these tools, or maybe a mediated version like Conmigo, which is a one of many different online tutoring platforms that are very controlled and a lot more safe than something like ChatGPT or Gemini or XAI that can talk at length on any subject and connect them to all kinds of things. So, just like anytime a kid's connected to the internet, maximum caution should be taken. Back to this Conmigo, this is a really nice a tutoring platform for all sorts of subjects. There are also really nice teacher tools. It says it's free, but when I went to go investigate it, it said, "Can I have $44?" And I didn't get too much further into that. So I don't have first-hand experience with this, but I have used other educational AIs, and they can be really helpful. I think as they improve, I think the potential for them to help remediate some of the learning that's happening for kids that are a little bit behind. I think there's a lot of potential there. When there's that one-on-one kind of back and forth, that's powerful. I was homeschooled when I was in elementary school, and that was all we did, right? It was just me and my mom. Um, and we would talk for a couple hours a day about all the things I was reading, and that made a big difference, and it certainly made me feel like what I was doing is more important. So it's certainly not a replacement for that teacher interaction, but very often you've got 25 students in your class, and that time for personalized learning gets shortchanged very often. So there are platforms coming out that are seeking to address that.
And the Khan Academy has a great reputation anyway. I mean, we used that when I was teaching. Yeah.
They have really wonderful stuff. If you're not familiar with Khan Academy, they do a lot for uh, education and for developing nations. You can learn so much on there. It's lovely. I'm going to skip past that discussion question. I already told you my opinion about it, which is like keep your kids off this, or at the very least be with them when they're using it. Next topic is devaluing relationships. Did you all see that movie, Her? Well, it's real now. These platforms and character AI is kind of the preeminent one, create characters that you can interact with and have all these kinds of relationships with. And most of it's pretty innocent, but a lot of people are still getting sucked in a way that's concerning to me. I think they'll get better. I think they'll be less probably designed to trick and engage you in the future. I would love a great pocket assistant. That would be nice, but I don't want a pocket best friend. Um, the website, it's interesting. You can kind of get the idea of like who's using it by looking at this card. I just took a splat of the home page. And there's some like interesting text games. I got like two prompts into a imaginary scenario where you're a janitor on a spaceship and the Claxtons are rigging. And that was kind of fun. That's fun. And I'm sure gaming will take advantage of these things a lot in the future. But this is something to know about. People are having friendships and relationships with computer software. So the flip side of that is there are wonderful research tools that are that can be personal as well. I really love deep research. That's the Gemini research platform that I was talking about. This is from Google. This particular screenshot is from a research project I was doing about the Sherwood Foundation in Nebraska. They are talking about a big influx of money and sunsetting, and I just didn't know where to look for all that information. So I gave it a prompt, and it connected to me to all these newsletters and foundation oriented publishers, and a whole world of information I did not know about. Each of those headings will end in a little caret that you can click on, and it shows you those references. Very handy. And let's give it a try. Cynthia, we'll see if this works. We're going to take a couple of prompts from the audience. And I'm assuming that you can't see my screen yet, so I am working on that.
We can see it. Demo time. Let's give it a try.
No, I'm actually moving into Gemini now to
Okay.
take it for a spin. Here we go. I had a list of funny and interesting prompts to get through. I'm going to pick one of them, I think, and then I'll take a suggestion from the audience. I'm going to do an image prompt here to give you an idea. Let's see, we're going to create an image of a show choir. Is that one word? Doesn't matter. These tools will figure out the spelling, and pretty much any horrible spelling I put into it, it figures out. So zoo. This took a lot longer just a year ago. Now it's a lot faster. It's a lot better. If you know what to look for, I think it's pretty easy to spot, but it doesn't mean that it can't be fun and useful for some applications. So it's kicking out the image that we requested. Let's take a look. Kind of like a show choir. They got their sparkly outfits on, and it went away because I enlarged it. It's loading here. It's definitely zoo animals. It's kind of a show choir, I guess. They're dancing, they're singing, they're moving. And you all saw how long that took. Not too long, not too terribly long at all. Um, Gemini also offers some video versions. We'll do a quick text one just to give you an idea of what it can do, if you haven't before.
Real quick, Megan has asked, what's the difference between the paid version and the free one?
Um, there usually it's the number of generations that you get. Usually it'll cut you off if you're on the free version after a while. You get more time with the paid version. I have the paid version of Gemini just because I use it for photo storage. Um, and I use a lot of I have a lot of music files from projects that I'm working on that are also quite large. Sometimes they're a couple of gigabyte. So I store it in Google. One of the perks of that is that you get access to all their frontier stuff. There's a little sonnet. I'm sure it's fine. Uh, I'm gonna skip reading it today, and because I want to do a prompt from the audience if anyone's got one. Oh, here's one that's well, oh, where'd we go?
Ah, here's one.
Okay, give me a sec to get back to it.
Okay.
I'm just gonna open a new one. Okay, I'm gonna reshare. I don't see a green border. Can you see my hello, Josh?
Yes.
Okay, great. What's that prompt, Cynthia?
Space exploration underwater featuring Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. And
Oh,
that's from
we gotta
Kelly.
we gotta tell it we want an image.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Prompting is everything with these things between getting a good response and a bad one. And that's cooking up here. Cynthia, we got about 5 minutes left. Do you think we can stretch a few more minutes out there, or are we a pretty hard deadline?
Oh, we don't have any other meetings coming up, so as long as
Okay.
folks are willing to stick around, yeah.
I don't know what Mammoth Cave looks like or anything about Mammoth Cave.
Oh, you
Um,
should come to Kentucky
maybe
then.
this looks like it.
Megan
I
says
haven't
now
been for
turn
a
it in.
long time. That sounds wonderful. It's so beautiful.
Megan says now turn it into a song with sheet
What does she
music.
want?
Turn it into a song with sheet music. Oh, there you go.
I have no idea what it's going to do. So good luck to all of us. Oh,
Wow.
it, I use Gemini a lot for MIDI routing, which is a kind of thing that you do when you're making electronic music. And it might be picking up on that. It looks like we've got a meter here and a key, A minor. It's got chord charts here. Looks like it's made a song. And I'm not going to try to sing it. If you're, you're all at home and you probably read music better than I do. Deep beneath the Kentucky ground, Mammoth's heart, where silence is found, waters flow in darkness. They gleam, a subterranean, space-like dream. Oh wow, the cave unfurls, a cosmic sea, stars reflect in waters free, each drift a pulse, a distant light, exploring dark with all my might. That's our chorus there. So, I mean, it's not
Bravo,
sheet
bravo.
music. It's not sheet music, but it's a song. Let's see. Putting my music theory spectacles on here. I mean, the C, they didn't say it's E. I mean, it's a C2, so not C minor, but what you might expect. I don't know. Sure, I'd try it. Pretty fun. And I think that's the best thing to do with these things is have fun with them for a while. They're not as good as they're gonna be, I'll tell you that. And for now, you can kind of play. This is a great time to start playing. Like I said, I think you should wait before you implement it at your organization. But I think you should be playing with these things right now. When you're prompting, there's some things you can do to make your prompts come out better. Be specific. I've said that a couple times here. Tell it what feeling to evoke. Practice, play. It doesn't take technical skills to use these tools, but if you want to prompt well, take some practice. Include the tools that you want it to simulate or the writers that you want to evoke. Tell it what perspective, what kind of file. Tell it everything you can if you want it to come out good.
Ask if you can play an audio of that song.
Not with Gemini. However, if you put it into Suno or one of the other music generation apps, yeah, it would do it. It would do it pretty good too. It's really shocking how good the music generative AIs are at this point. I don't know if we're going to hear a top 40 song come out of one anytime soon, but it's at least competent, which is saying more than some musicians don't meet that threshold. Me very often, so uh, devalue of labor is a serious issue. But I told it to make funny pictures, and it made some funny pictures about devaluing labor as these things get better and faster, especially the embodied AI. That's an AI inside of a moving platform like a robot or an assembly line. There are going to be some real consequences for people's livelihoods. You're already seeing it in some industries, especially tech. They're getting slammed by this. Junior coders are not as useful as they used to be. because senior coders can just use these tools to expedite things that they would have had junior coders do in the past. For other sectors, there's a possibility that'll be a hiring slowdown, especially in kind of white collar work. Accounting is something that a lot of people are trying to get these tools to do reliably. They're not there yet, but they're getting closer all the time. And I think a lot of it is we're probably not going to see as much supplantation as benefits and efficiency that make hiring less important. But that there's a lot of concerns there. It's like, how do you get people to that point of experience if they're always relying on these kind of tools? Um, you got to use your judgment. You have to know what's good to know what's good out of these things, right? Um, if you don't know what's good or what works well, you'll be embarrassing yourself or throwing yourself against an impossible coding problem or a lot of other unfortunate consequences. Good news, I think, is that the arts are going to be safe. Maybe not art administration, not quite the way I do it, because there's a lot of computer work. Some of that might be automated someday, but I think there's always going to be a market for people on a stage, uh, somebody on the street corner with a guitar. There's always going to be a market for a painting that somebody painted. I mean, we have photographs, but we still commission portraits. So technology is going to change a lot of these things, but for artists, I think we've got a lot of. I think there'll be more of us in the future as people have more time to pursue it, not less of us, and more interest in the arts because people have more time to enjoy it and have to spend less time working. Graphic designers and copywriters are a part of our arts group, and they are more vulnerable. We already know Photoshop has done so much to expedite um, graphic work. I mean, people used to use matte cutters and transparencies and all these different handmade, like hand oriented processes for graphic design. Now we almost never do that unless it's that you're going for a certain look. So certainly there are changes coming, but for those fine arts, I think there's a wide moat and even a widening moat to keep our industry safe. Who wants a painting that of a robot made? I don't.
So we
Uh,
have a few things in the
yes,
chat.
yes.
Um, Jared said, I would wager a bet that top 40 songs of the future will be entirely produced by AI, LOL. Please write a song using the same four chords with a bridge and a chorus that is catchy and dancey. So I
He's
thought that
not
was funny.
wrong. He's
And
not
then
wrong.
Megan was talking about hand-thrown pottery. That's something AI can't do. So,
No,
and that's Megan's art.
yeah.
Um,
We have molds. We already have molds. If you want an uninspiring piece of terracotta, it's out there already. That's not going to be threatened by AI.
And then Jared had one more comment. I stand firm in my belief that AI can never reproduce or supplant human creativity.
And why would we want that? I mean, I think that's part of what you get when you get artwork and when you go to a performance and hear a song is it's just that exactly. It's that human connection. That's what it's all about. I think we're probably in the safest industry in a lot of ways. I think those cultural things are going to be more valuable if we have more time to invest in them. I want to go fishing with my mom more. I want to hang out with my daughter more. I want so much out of this technology, and none of it is artwork. I want to go see those things. One or two things I'm going to leave you with today. I want to show you where all this is going with embodiments. This is Atlas by Boston Dynamics. If you're not hip to what's going on in robotics, they're putting LLMs in them. And of course, they're only getting more and more dexterous. These platforms are rolling out in Wisconsin right now in assembly lines. It's experimental, but they can set parts out. They move things are all over the place, and of course, Amazon is already using non-humanoid robots in their workshops. In China, they have something that's called a dark factory, where they don't even have to turn the lights on because every process is automated already. So this is not going to go away. Um,
I wonder if surgery is ever, because I had a surgery where the Da Vinci, put in
right?
some metal. And so I was just wondering, will that eventually be something, a way to have surgery?
Absolutely. I think medicine is going to improve a lot with these technologies, not just LLMs, but all kinds of computer assisted uh, advancements in medicine are definitely on the way. That's one of my favorite pictures, videos of this robotics revolution that we're kind of in the middle of. They're just getting so much better than they were. Right? If you remember 20 years ago, Honda had like Asimo, which was a humanoid kind of robot, but it just went very slowly and it couldn't do very much. And it struggled to do everything. But these new ones, some of them are not even teleoperated, like Atlas is not teleoperated. It's figuring these things out on its own.
We're still seeing your Gemini screen.
Oh, okay. So you didn't see the robot at all?
Not, no, sorry.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna run that back because it's pretty good.
And Megan said that she chatted with a robotic surgeon and he said that the next step is remote surgery. Well, I was just thinking, like trucks can move around and you can just walk outside your door and go in and have the surgery.
Right? Oh boy, wouldn't that be nice? Can you see the robot now? Yeah.
Yes.
Another platform this company is working on is a machine that really efficiently packs trucks with boxes. And I've got a friend that does that job right now, but you should see this machine do it. Um, they're ready now. These humanoids are not, but some of these industrial robots are already revolutionizing the way that workshops, uh, warehouses work.
Are they going to be transformers?
Why not? Why not? Something else that's this is a breaking news basically, and this is more of the computer science side of things. Alpha Evolve is a algorithm producer, and if you know how important algorithms are to how we do things these days, and to computer science, this is very significant. Now, this is probably not something that consumers are going to touch, but it's a way that AIs are improving computing and AI on their own. Got a lot of questions about how it works and if it's a great idea or not. Um, but some of the advancements that have been made with Alpha Evolve just in the last couple of weeks are pretty stunning from a math and computer science perspective and making things more efficient for everyone. Of course, it's nice to know how it's all working and who gets access to these platforms because that makes a difference. Um, this is just kind of a last image to leave you with here. I'm going to skip uh, talking through all of this, but this is one of these early portrait photos that you might have a traveling guy with a big old accordion style camera taking pictures. Um, People were really upset in the fine arts world when this kind of technology was coming out because it did take jobs away from portrait artists. We still have portrait artists, but it's not like it was. And I think that's something to keep in mind with all this stuff. Is all these old things that we do will still be around. Craft is never going to go away. Human hands are never going to go away. But things are going to change. Photography changed things. Photoshop changed things. The printing press. Would we have Protestants today without the printing press? There's just all these technologies that might not seem so significant at the very beginning, just make a huge impact on the world. And I think AI is one of those. I tend to be one of the people that says this is kind of like the next internet, the internet for our generation. We'll see if that bears out. Um, it's just early days. If you guys have a couple more questions, this is my last slide. I'd love to talk a little bit more. So let's get into it. What do you think?
Leah says, it's so interesting to hear about the issues with bias that you are seeing in grant writing. Do you think that AI could determine who would win the grant since it would know the guidelines and the scoring?
Sure, but again, do we want to do that? I don't think so. I don't think so. But again, it might be some governor in some other state that says, let's do this, and it catches on. I don't know. Um, yeah, I think it would probably be pretty good at checking things for compliance, but not understanding community impact. I think that would be the big difference. Understanding what's going on in the communities that these arts projects are taking place in is usually more important. Understanding community is something that these things can't do yet. And I think those are more important aspects of grant review at this point. Compliance is just the first step. Any more questions? Well, there's my
Thanks for
chat.
thanks for the answer. A lot to think about the impact of this technology. And then we've been getting people who had to hop off, but they're saying,
Sure.
excellent, excellent. They've enjoyed this. This has been delightfully thought-provoking. This is from Kelleen. Thank you for all your time and putting this together. I definitely plan to dabble more in AI and use it to aid, plan, and inspire. Paul says, thanks for doing this. Thank you. Very informative. That's from Megan. So I think we're good. Does anybody have any last remark? You can hop on. Unmute your mic. You've done a great job, Joshua. I knew you would. Thank you so much. And yeah, Chris, would you like to add anything?
Oh, I just think that was a fantastic presentation, and as I reiterated, and you even said through this conversation, Joshua, this is an ongoing discussion. You're learning as new technologies come available and software to go along with it and complement it. We wanted to scratch the surface here and get people talking about how to utilize the current technology in an efficient way. But I greatly appreciate this. And, from the audience, wonderful questions, wonderful ideas and examples of how you're already utilizing this and how, we can look at other ways of doing that too.
Senta, I see you just popped on here. Did you have a question today or a comment?
No, thank you so much. I think that it is. I asked that about grant writing because I think that to try to extrapolate as an educator, like from your area of expertise, like I was thinking like, oh, like I could get replaced too by when for teaching and for art making. So it was good to hear your thoughts on that. I appreciate it.
I think teaching is another thing that has a really wide moat because that human connection is such an important part of really learning and understanding the cultural implications of that learning. I think that's the most important thing, and that's something that it might take a long time for a machine to figure out. And it's just nice to be with people most of the time. Anything else today?
Tamara says that she's a technophobe, but you've gotten her interested in trying it out. Yay.
I think that's what everyone's got to do. Maybe that's a goal for the years. Just log in, give it a shot, see what it's like. Try to do something fun.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll send you any other comments if we get any questions through email or anything like that. And happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.